Hello my dear viewers, and welcome to another video. In this video I am going to cover the topic of consumer surplus, producer surplus, total surplus and the calculation method of all these three types of surpluses. So let us start with the consumer surplus. Let us try to understand what do we mean by consumer and the producer surplus. Consumer surplus is basically the additional benefit which consumer enjoys if he pays less price than the price which he is actually willing to pay, and the maximum price which a consumer is ready to pay in order to buy a good can be termed as the buyer's reservation price. And what the consumer actually have to pay the price for that good, it is known as the market price, and it is determined by the equality of quantity demanded and quantity supply in the market. So market price is actually the actual price which consumer is paying. So market price is the actual price which consumer actually pay, right? And what is the reservation price? This is the price which consumer is willing to pay. So this consumer surplus can be positive, or the consumer can enjoy a positive surplus if the maximum price or the reservation price, buyer's reservation price, is higher than the price which he is actually paying, which is the market price. Okay, so if this is the case, then the consumer is going to enjoy a surplus. How? For example, if the buyer's reservation price is suppose, or the price at which a buyer wants to buy a good, it is, let us suppose, the maximum price to buy, for example, a laptop. For a buyer, the maximum price at which he is willing to buy a laptop, it is, let us suppose that it is 300 and let us suppose that it is $300, right? And the market price of the laptop is just 250. So in that case, the consumer surplus is going to be the difference between the between his reservation price and the market price which he is going to pay actually in order to buy that laptop. So consumer surplus in that case is going to be $50. So basically here the buyer with the higher reservation price is going to save some amount, right? And which is known as the consumer surplus, and it is also known as the you can say the additional benefit by doing that purchase. But it is not always the case that the buyer's reservation price is always greater than the market price. There are some consumers, because buyer's reservation price is differ from person to person. So maybe there are some buyers for them the reservation price for to buy a laptop, it may be let us suppose for individual 2, the reservation price is let us say that it is just 200, right? But the actual price is actually it is 250. So in that case the difference is going to be negative, minus $50, right? So it means whenever the consumer surplus is going to be negative, means the buyer's reservation price, the maximum willingness to pay in order to buy the laptop, if it is lower than the actual price, then in that case the consumer surplus is going to be negative, and in that case this consumer is not going to purchase laptop in the market of laptop. So there will be no trading of good from this consumer who has the reservation price which is less than the market price. Okay, so this is the main concept, right? So all those consumers who have reservation price higher than the market price, they always going to have a positive consumer surplus. They always going to enjoy a certain amount of benefit which they can have by purchasing that good. Here I'm going to give you the diagrammatical explanation of the consumer surplus, that how you can find the consumer surplus by using the diagram for a market. Let us suppose that we are in a market of rice, and here D is showing the demand for rice and S is showing the supply curve for rice, and E is actually determining the efficient outcome, which shows that at my market price PE, the rice, the amount of rice which is sold and purchased, it is equals to QE. Okay, now the consumer surplus in this market of rice is the area under the demand curve and above the market price. So consumer surplus can be shown by just considering the area under the demand curve and above the market price, and we can easily calculate the consumer surplus by just calculating the area of this right angle triangle. You can see that this is actually the right angle triangle. The vertices are PE, P2 and E are the vertices of this triangle. So the area of the of this triangle will gives you the consumer surplus, and you know the formula for the consumer surplus, for the triangle, right angle triangle, area is half into height to the width of that right angle triangle. So in this case, the height of this rectangle is equals to the difference between the P2 minus PE, and the width is equals to it is equals to QE. Okay, so basically it is QE minus 0. So I'm not showing 0 here, that's why I'm just writing QE. Okay, so now you have formula, and now you know that how can you find out the consumer surplus in a diagram which representing a market for any good. You can easily apply the formula for the area of the rectangle, and then you can easily calculate the consumer surplus. Now let us try to consider use some numerical values. For example, let us say that PE is equals to let us suppose $5. So P is the price per kilogram for rice, it is $5. And what about QE? Let us suppose that just for simplicity, let us suppose that it is 1000 kilogram of rice, right, per day are actually sold and purchased in the market of rice. What about P2? P2 is the price or the buyer's reservation price where he's not demanding any rice or any quantity of rice. Okay, P2, let us suppose that it is 11, or let us say that it is $10, right? $10. This is the now just by substituting these values in the formula for consumer surplus, you know that you have to calculate the consumer surplus. How you will calculate it? You just need to substitute the values. What is the height? Now the height is equals to half. What is P2? P2 is $10, And what about the market price or equilibrium price? It is 5. And what about the quantity sold and purchased? It is 1000, right? 1000 kilogram. Okay, so it is going to be 1 by 2 into 5, and then here we have 1000, so we will have 2500 or 2000 $500, which is the consumer surplus in this market of rice. So this is the way how you can calculate the consumer surplus by just calculating the area of the right angle triangle that covers the area under the demand curve and above the market price. Now it's time to learn about producer surplus. Just like the consumer surplus, producer surplus is basically the additional benefit which producer is going to have by selling an additional unit of good at a price which is lower than his marginal cost of producing that good. Or in a more simple way, we can say that producer surplus is the difference between the market price and the seller's reservation price. Seller's reservation price is actually the minimum price at which seller is ready to sell, or it is also equals to the marginal cost of producing that additional unit, while market price again is the price at the equilibrium. Okay, so a seller is ready to sell if the market price is higher. If the market price is higher than the seller's reservation price. So if market price is greater than the seller's reservation price, the producer surplus is always going to be positive, or we can say that sellers are going to reap a benefit, an additional benefit, by selling a unit of good at a price which is greater than their marginal cost of producing that unit. So for example, if price for the good which seller is actually producing and selling in the market, let us say that again take the example of the laptop market. Here if the market price of a laptop it is let us suppose that it is $300, right? But the seller's reservation price or the marginal cost of producing one unit of laptop, it is let us suppose that it is only 250. Then in that case we can say that producer is basically having a cost of production which is $250, but he is selling at a price of $300. So producers are basically earning $50 by selling one unit, or by selling a laptop in the market. In the same way, we can also consider some other reservation prices for laptop, because there are many producers in the market of a good who are supplying or selling the same product. So it is possible that some of the sellers, the reservation price seller's reservation price is, let us say, it is just we can say that it is 350. So in that case, if the seller's reservation price is 350 while the market price is 300 for a laptop, to purchase a laptop, then in that case, if we take the difference between them, then it is going to be minus $50. So if this is the case, then it means that the seller producer surplus is going to be negative, or there are actually losses which seller is going to have if he is going to sell the laptop at a price of 300, because his marginal cost is 350. So in that case, all those sellers, they will not supply or sell their good when there is a negative producer surplus, or when the marginal cost or their reservation price is higher than the market price. This is actually very simple concept, producer surplus. And here what we have to do, we just have to take the difference between the market price and the seller's reservation price. And the difference, if this difference is positive, then it means that sellers are actually getting additional benefits. Why? Because their marginal cost, because they are selling at a price which is greater than their marginal cost. So they are actually reaping some additional benefits, which is known as the producer surplus, additional benefits, right? So that's all for this theoretical explanation of producer surplus. Now let us move to the next slide and try to analyze diagrammatically that how we can determine the producer surplus. So you just have learned that producer surplus is the positive difference between the market price and the seller's reservation price. Now we are going to determine diagrammatically the producer surplus as we did in case of consumer surplus. Again, consider the same diagram, and here again let us say that we are considering the rice market, and this market is clear at this point E, which gives a market clearing price or equilibrium price, which is PE, and the quantity QE. Okay, so now how can we define the producer surplus? For that, what we need to consider, we need to consider the area above this demand curve, above this supply curve, and below this market clearing price PE. So basically this area is showing the producer surplus, and each point on the supply curve is also showing the seller's reservation price for different sellers. So some sellers have reservation price like this, and some sellers have higher reservation price, and some other they are more reservation price, and the last seller maybe in this market has a reservation price which is exactly equals to the market clearing price, and the last seller, just like the last buyer, is not going to have any producer surplus. Why? Because in that case the market price is going to be equal to the reservation price when they both are equal. So the producer surplus is basically, we can say, it is the area under the price, market clearing price, and above the supply curve. Again, you can see that this producer surplus is in form of a right angle triangle. So mathematically we can also determine the producer surplus by considering the area of this right angle triangle, which is equals to the half into height of this triangle to the width of this triangle. So how can we define it? We can write it like this. What is the height? The height of this right angle triangle, it is the PE, which is the market price, right? Market price, or PE minus P1, and then the quantity which is purchase, or the width, is equals to this portion, which is equals to QE, which is equals to QE minus 0. So minus 0 we are not actually writing here, but just for to explain it, to understand it more clear way, I'm just writing it here 0. Okay, so this will gives you the area of this right angle triangle, and this will also gives you the producer surplus. So for example, if let us consider some numeric value, so it will be more clear. Let us say that P1 is equals to $1 while PE is equals to $5. Then in that case, and what about QE? QA is, let us suppose that it is 1000. So what information you have? You have information on PE, which is $5, and you have information on QE, which is 1000 kilogram of rice, and then you also have information on the minimum price for the sellers, which is equals to or the horizontal intercept of this right angle of this supply curve. So it is equals to P1 equals to $1. So by just substituting, in order to calculate the area, we just need to substitute these values here, and you will see that it is equals to 5 minus P1 is $1, and then QE is equals to 1000 kilogram. So it is going to be half, and here you can see that we are going to have producer surplus equals to $2000. So total producer surplus is going to be $2000 for this market of rice. So this is the way how we can actually compute and define the producer surplus diagrammatically. The next concept is total surplus. Total surplus can be defined as the total net gain to the consumer and producer from trading in the market. We can determine or compute total surplus by using either the area method or by just taking the summation of consumer and the producer surplus. So let us focus on the first method, which is the summation of consumer and producer surplus. For that, let us again consider this the same diagram. Here the yellow triangle is showing the consumer surplus as it is the area under the demand curve and above the market price PE, and this red triangle is showing the producer surplus as it is below the market price and above the supply curve. Okay, so if we again consider the same market of rice, then it will be easy for us to calculate total surplus. In the previous example where you have calculated consumer and producer surplus, we have assumed that the equilibrium price it was 5 and quantity it was 1000, and marginal cost or P1 or the seller's reservation price it was 1, and the buyer's reservation price is considered as 10. So on the basis of this information, the consumer surplus we have calculated it was equals to 2500, and the producer surplus which we have calculated it was 2000. And now you have everything to use the first method in order to calculate the total surplus. And what you have to do is you just have to take the sum of both of these surplus, and you will have the total surplus equals to 4500. So you just have completed with the understanding of using the first method. Now comes to the second. So in the second method, we need to calculate the area of this large triangle that contains both small triangles which explain consumer surplus and producer surplus. So vertices of this large triangle are P1, E and P2, and the formula, as you already know, that it is equals to the half into height to the width of the triangle. Okay, so let us now try to calculate the total surplus by just plugging in the values. So it is what is the height? The height is just P2 minus P1, which is 10 minus 1. And what is the width? Width is 1000 kilogram of rice. And it is now it will give us 9000 over 2, and so the total surplus in this economy, or the net gain to the consumer and producers, is equals to 4005. It is equals to $4,500, which you have already calculated with the first method, where you just sum up the consumer and the producer surplus. So I hope that you have understood now how can we compute total surplus, consumer surplus and producer surplus by using the diagrammatical method, and or by using the area method. If you like this video, then please subscribe, like and share with your friends and family, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you will receive the notification for my latest video.